We're going to show you what one of our xMOD systems looks like as installed, in this case, on the 2024 Mustang.
So it's Justin here, and we have Rich with MagnaFlow, and while we're out here checking this place out, you guys have something really cool for us while we're here.
Yeah, we're going to show you what one of our xMOD systems looks like as installed, in this case, on the 2024 Mustang. It is an iteration of the previous S650 platform, and while it does share the same motor, it's now a twin intake, and there's a little bit difference in power. It is the last of a legacy car, and I hate to say, you know, the gas motor in this car, they promised us that it's not coming back. So we wanted to take a little extra effort in creating the most tuned system we can put in a box, and now you're looking at it.
Yeah, and this is fantastic, and if you guys don't know anything about the MagnaFlow xMOD system, it's really, really neat, and this is very customizable.
Yes, that's the biggest thing with xMOD, comes from the word exchangeable modules, hence xMOD. And what we've done is we've taken the exhaust system's critical parts and we've placed them into a V-band clamped module, which means you can exchange out an X pipe for a muffled X pipe. So now you can have two different tones and qualities that you have. And not only that, the entire system being put together with V-bands means you can service the system, adjust the parts and whatnot without having to go to a muffler shop, no weld, no cutting, and basically an 11mm gets you to any mode you want to use.
You know, if I want to drive the car on the weekend by myself and I want it to be a little bit louder, I can do that. But if I want to take the car out on date night or do something like that where I need to be a little bit quieter, we have that option as well.
Yeah, and sometimes quieter is not always about date night, and sometimes it's just about, hey, I'm running my twin turbo setup, I've got my big power setup, and maybe I'm on a track day, and I need to tone it down just a hair, but I still want all that airflow. Going to one of the more muffled setups might keep your more extreme version a little more street friendly.
Heck yeah, and that is, you know, we love being able to customize tone, sound, all that, and you guys really knocked it out of the park with this system, and I can't wait to see what it sounds like on the car.
We got a lot going on. We'll show you what comes out of the box, and we'll get it on the vehicle so you can test out and see what it sounds like.
Yeah, let's get this thing unboxed and check it out.
So a couple things to look at, and here's that front module. So we have our extreme delete, which gets rid of the front muffler resonator, and it's going to give you your H pipe, which is something we'll talk about. This is the first offering MagnaFlow's made that doesn't have an X. And there's a particular reason why, and that's because of the way that this motor sounds. We wanted to preserve what Ford spent so much time creating in the Coyote, and that's a very particular sound.
Yeah, no, the Coyote, that's certainly one of the things about, you know, this modern muscle era, is the Coyote is in a range of its own when it comes to the noise.
And there's something distinct about it that we wanted to preserve while still giving it that MagnaFlow character. So our packed mufflers will have a different sound, but again, for this car, our packed mufflers are no longer packed, and that's something that we did with this vehicle. This is our first completely chambered exhaust that still maintains our straight through perforation core. So again, here's our V-band clamps, which a couple of features to look at. These are quick releases, so you don't have to sit there and wear down the wrench going all the way down. They do have the quick release option, so when you are switching these out on the vehicle, it makes for a faster one-handed, one-person type of installation. We do maintain all of the factory valve operations, so with the xMOD products, we've incorporated some other features which we'll talk about once it's on the vehicle, but they do reuse the factory valve system, so if you have an active system, you're not losing any of the features that were originally there.
Man, that's really cool, because like the active, like that's, you know, that's an option a lot of people are seeking out, so why would you want to remove something that's just going to complement your exhaust?
The whole purpose of xMOD is to give you full functionality and improve the overall experience while allowing you to customize. And when I say customize, something as small as this, we all know, again, the system is 3-inch, so we're making an improvement to the factory diameter, and that's what you see here. However, on vehicles where you do want to go to an aftermarket setup that is 3-inch to 3-inch, we give you all the adjustment parts here so that it can go down to factory size or go back up to what's going to fit to the system. So even if you're going to be enlarging the front pipes, we do give you an option to take care of that as well.
You know, one of my favorite highlights and what I like about it is your high quality hangers. Like that is, the attention to detail there is just amazing.
Well, some of that is, and this is something that you'll be able to see on the vehicle more, is we've added this brace that you see in the kit, which bolts in here. If you imagine, we're going to take this part on and off based upon what we want. And if you know anything about how dual exhaust systems work, that is the joining portion that kind of holds your tips in alignment. So by us taking the two front pipes and joining them together, And then also using a hanger that is a double shear hanger, we can support the entire weight of the exhaust system with the tips not touching the fascia, which means you're not going to burn. Let's say you're at a track and you want to go to the louder mode. Your tips will hang in the appropriate place even with the front pipe removed. And we'll demonstrate that when we get it on the vehicle, but it's all part of the design that went into the system. Is we wanted to have a truly modular system which kept its orientation, because if you've ever done quad tip exhaust, the amount of time we spend in getting those tips right, this locks it in place so that we can adjust the front pipe and never have to readjust the rear. We'll get this pulled apart and Jose's gonna give us a hand installing it.
So Jose made quick work of getting this system out, and
done a few.
Yeah, you know, I think he's done a couple in his day. But we just went ahead and laid this thing out so we can kind of look at it compared to this system. And one of the things I think is neat is you guys are reusing the factory live valves, and they will bolt right on without any modification.
Right, so we have the electronics will transfer from theirs to ours, but the big part, like you said, is the valve we're actually getting from the same supplier that Ford buys from. So there's zero compatibility issues you'll look at. So when the computer's happy, we know we're not going to have any issues. And that's, with xMOD, we're looking for the premium approach, and that's the best way we can do it for the Mustang.
Another cool thing we actually have, and we'll talk about here in a little bit, is you have one of these exhausts that's cut away, so we'll be able to see the nitty gritty, what's going on inside these mufflers, and the, I don't know what you exactly want to call that. Would you call it an H-pipe, an X-pipe, a kind of a combination?
A resonator muffler, so it does a lot of different things, and that was why I was curious to pull it apart, and our engineering team was. It's to do with this car. And like I said, we wanted to make sure that the tuned output sound that we have from the 5-liter in its final generation is indicative of the sound it should have. So we'll get to understand what exactly happens inside this chambered muffler and what exactly happens inside of that chambered resonator, and I'll compare that to what we've got going on inside of our parts.
Well, let's get out of Jose's way, and so he can get this beautiful exhaust system on, and we can see what it sounds like.
We'll do that.
So first impressions before I opened up the valve on the exhaust is this thing sounds really good. It's great. I mean, we'll hit it right there. Look how quiet the car just got. Like, that's perfect for driving around mode. You throw her up in track mode and the car just sounds amazing, and you just uncorked it. This thing just sounds so good. It's such a huge difference. Now, it has a couple different modes. There's 4 different ones. So like, you'll go here, this is normal exhaust. It's it sounds really good. But if you go to sport mode, then it's like throttle dependent. So the valve's gonna open kind of depending on where you are in the throttle and that kind of deal. And then track mode is on all the time, ready to party. So we just got back from our Mustang test drive, and the proof is in the pudding. This system sounds amazing. I'm a true believer now.
And this is where all of those intricate details of the design side come in. And you know, you got to see earlier what it looks like to scan the outside, but here we dissected the inside so you can take a look at what's going on in that factory muffler and how much that influenced what we're doing in ours. And obviously you can't see there, so I got my drawing here to kind of talk about it. But you know, when we were in that mode where you're at track mode, you can see as the exhaust comes through, it's a straight shot when that valve's open. But when it closes up, you can imagine there's no other holes here. If you look carefully at the inside, all of those gases while you're cruising around in the quiet mode are only coming out that small perforated pipe, and then it's going into this chamber here, which is sort of a, you would call it like a Helmholtz chamber, which is for tuning some of those low frequency drone notes to make it more comfortable inside. But really, it's got to come out these holes and then travel all the way behind here and down this pipe to get out under the normal mode. So you can see all of that, plus the reverberation, the refraction, all the other things that's going on inside really are what make it quiet. But we want to keep a little bit of that character, And that's why when we designed ours, it's a smaller body. So we are making the overall dampening a little less, so it's a little louder. But we did change up a few things. So if you kind of look at the design here, we still have the same thing where the primary pipe comes through and comes out, and the valve kind of makes it revert back through the system. The only difference is you can see we're fully perforated versus only having the small amount. So even at the part throttle modes, you're going to have better performance and better airflow. But we still wanted to control sound, so the secondary perf tube here, it basically, as you're traveling through, would come in and then go out through these holes and travel through, and then have to either come into these holes, which would be the hardest way for the air to flow, but it can permeate the wall and come back just like the factory system does. Effectively, we're able to achieve the same type of loud function, but we're changing the sound a little bit to make sure that what we have in here isn't exactly the same as factory. We want that kind of deeper MagnaFlow tone, but we still want that very much so chambered sound.
It's that smiles per gallon kind of deal. You're like, this thing sounds, your foot's in it because this thing sounds great.
This happens to be the competition series. You don't see the V-band, but the mufflers are the same for both the competition series with the active exhaust as they are with the xMOD. But the big difference lies up front, and we'll take a look at that next. We'll dissect that factory front resonator and talk about how and why we deviated from our traditional X pipe into the H pipe.
Let's move down the bench and check that out. So we've moved down the table and up the exhaust system per se to all these, and Rich is going to go through and explain kind of the differences and a lot of the engineering that went into this.
So the first part is the resonator that's up front, and it's pretty non-assuming on the outside. It's just this big kind of square-like object, and you can't quite see what's going on, which you can see there's quite a bit going on inside. You've got this front chamber, which is completely sealed, but you can see there are some perf holes, and that does act as sort of a interchange or a crossover, similar to how like an H-pipe acts. So this allows the left bank and the right bank to interact, so we get some noise cancellation, but it's not really a highly effective in the sense of sound control as a H-pipe as we traditionally hear them. The next part is, you'll notice there's no perforation here, perforation here, perforation here, and no perforation here. Effectively, on earlier generation Mustangs, in the mid-pipe, you would have seen two like bullet resonators in there. And this is like having a separate muffler of a larger volume instead of a small bullet muffler on each side, because on this side, it doesn't interact in this first chamber. It goes to the second chamber, which has got this packing material and fiberglass inside. And you can see that this one doesn't have the perforation as well. So this is like having two small resonators behind a sort of crossover that's similar to an H-pipe. The sound that you get is like an H-pipe and like two resonators. So in the xMOD system, we provide our muffler module, which emulates the same sort of thing. The only difference is, you can kind of see in the drawing, is that it's got an H-pipe up front and two separate perforation tubes that continue to allow the interaction to happen. So it's a shared chamber, and as you can kind of see, the airflow here, let me grab the pen real quick, is coming through on the inlet side here, inlet side here. The balancing happens as the pulses travel down each side, but it still continues to run down through the end, and there's still interaction that's allowed between the different sides as the left and right kind of come in. So the top pipe can interact with that, even past the H pipe, which allows us the H pipe sound, the traditional sound of a closed H pipe, but we're still getting the benefit of having a large interaction zone to help control the amount of drone and resonance. So as a resonator, it performs extremely well, and it's sort of for our quiet system. But we also have our extreme delete, and the extreme delete emulates the same sort of H pipe, but no perforation, no more muffling. So we're not using any muffling up front here. We just want the interaction point for the crossover to balance that left and right tube to give you really that H pipe sound. And it is important because, as you see behind it, we did test it with our traditional True X, but it modified the sound such that I thought it kind of took away from that traditional Coyote sort of sense. And we went to so much trouble to create all of these chambered mufflers that we definitely wanted to kind of stay with that H-pipe sound. So this is really our first deviation, where we've got an American pony car that's going away from our X-pipe to the H-pipe. And the biggest part about this is we had to make sure that we weren't sacrificing any power. So the transition here with the design that we created gave us the sound we wanted without sacrificing any of that horsepower.
Yeah, that's really cool. And that was like one of my favorite things about this Mustang system, is all the interchangeability. Yeah. Now, the only thing I would change though is you guys call this the Extreme Delete, and I have a better name.
What do you got?
I think the party pipe is a much more appropriate name.
Trademark, of course.
Oh, of course. We got to keep on top of that. Yeah, it's been cool to see all the engineering and versatility that goes into this Mustang system and seeing the nitty-gritty parts of how it actually works. It's you know, we always ask the question is like, oh, it does this, but why does it do this? And it's been cool to learn about it.
It was a big deal for us. You know, this is supposedly the last generation of internal combustion for the late model Mustang, and we could have just put an S650 system in there and used the traditional sense of parts that we had, but we really wanted to pay homage to the original design of this motor and the sound that it has. So making the extra steps available of going to chambered style mufflers front and rear, putting an H back in here versus our traditional X pipe, were all things that we want to do to make sure that the S650 had the best possible exhaust that could be made for most making power and giving it that right sound for that Coyote motor.
So I just got back from the test drive and the exhaust is really impressive. I'm so amazed. I love the tunability and the quick change. You go from quiet to, you know, the thing's got a real thunder to it.
That was one thing we didn't want to lose. When the OEMs go to so much trouble to make sure that the car has kind of a split personality where you have something that you can cruise with. And if you notice, they actually call it like quiet or silence mode in that, where it's actually quieter than a performance exhaust would be, and then you've got your other modes, and then you've got your track mode. It'd be a shame not to build that in. So the xMOD system keeps all that functionality, but we wanted to still give it some unique tone. So with the MagnaFlow's sound, it's a little deeper, but we wanted to have that chambered sound burble, and we hope that we didn't lose that. And then with the front muffled setup that you ran with without the extreme delete, you kind of got the idea of what a good street cruiser would be, and kind of like what we think a good street and also track personality would be. But we're gonna go ahead and put in the extreme delete in there and let you figure out what it sounds like when it's in the wide open mode.
Yeah, I'm all about it. I think the, you know, I'm ready to see what the party pipe is all about.
The party pipe, yeah. Well, let's get it in there before we get going too far and see what it sounds like.
Let's do it. Driving it now with the quote-unquote party pipe installed, and we're in quiet mode, and the car is still very manageable. You can definitely tell a kind of difference in the exhaust tone, but I'm very happy with it. Like, this is still, you know, the loudest the car is supposed to be. It's still very, very mild and very, very drivable. So I'm gonna go to sport mode, which is like the variable exhaust mode. And as you kind of give it throttle, it modulates how much it's open. And like, there's no drone. Like, it's got a really aggressive tone, but it's not overbearing. And when it gets super loud, is that they get that kind of drone noise, and none of us are in love with that. Click it down into quiet mode, and it's awesome. So I just got back from the test drive with the party pipe installed, and this thing is awesome. It sounds fantastic.
Yeah, we really put in a lot of effort. So it's the little things, and especially because you got to drive one of the manual cars. That chambered muffler gives you a little bit of that burble as you're decelling. It just gives you a little bit more character. Everything about it is going to give you a little more, and that was the whole point of everything we did.
Yeah, it just adds to the driver experience of the car, and I really like that about that. You know, there's like parts like that where you're like, oh, is it going to improve how it drives? It just makes it more enjoyable, and I really like that.
Fun factor plus, you know.
Yes.
That's the way we like to look at it.
Yeah, mild to wild. Like, it's like when you were a kid and you drove something loud, so you had to, like, if you're sneaking out of your mom and dad's and you had to push it to the end of the driveway, then down the street to start it. That is quiet enough in quiet mode. You can roll her down the driveway. But if you want to make some noise, it's one button push away, and I'm tickled to death. I would buy one of these,
well,
just for the exhaust.
And that's literally the thing that we tried to do. We really wanted to make a complementary system that added to the character of somebody who enjoys sport type cars and wants to have exhaust, but doesn't want to interfere with all the things that the new amenities of a car have. Like you said, even with the loudest setting, when you put that on quiet mode, it's still manageable in everyday life. And that's really what we wanted to show you with the xMOD setup.
Yeah, I love how customizable it is. And like I said, with just a couple hand tools, the install, you know, Jose killed the install. The install was a breeze, like nothing too crazy. Everything's engineered to work perfectly together. And I just like those little, to where I was like, oh, I just slide this back and the pins are longer so you can do that. It's genius.
Yeah, we really wanted to make the experience so that anybody could enjoy it, whether you were mechanically inclined, had a shop, or doing this on, you know, jack stands in your garage.
Yes, the xMOD exhaust from MagnaFlow is Summit approved, so I love it. Head over to our website and pick yourself up one or another great MagnaFlow product. Make sure to like and subscribe to that Summit Racing YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any action like this or other cool stuff. Until next time, I'm Justin with Summit Racing. Thanks again, Rich, and we'll see you guys later.